Hi, I'm Susie Tomanchuk, and this is Leaders with Leverage. I am so excited to have you meet a good friend of mine. We were just saying that we are kind of the yin to yang to one another, if you will. Morag, thank you for being here today. I'm so happy to have you as one of our guests.
Susie, it was great catching up in the green room, and I'm really excited for this conversation.
Well, good. I did a more formal introduction to your background and how you got to where you are today as a leader in a big organization and then taking on your own entrepreneur journey. I can't even say that very well. But why don't you tell us a little bit about you and tell us about that journey as you think of yourself as a leader?
So I'm still on it, which is a good thing to be
Mm,
able to say, I suppose. But if I go, I'm going to do it in reverse chronological order because Sky Team is going to be 16 years old this year.
crazy.
And it's gone in the blink of an eye. So this is my entrepreneurial journey. And I remember when I started it saying to the family, well, we'll give it a year and see what happens. And it feels like overnight, here we are. And as Sky Team, we've supported more than 15,000 leaders around the world, 20 countries at the last count, 6 continents, been to North Slope, Alaska, the top of the world. I've been down to Chile and Peru and around to different places. And that's fascinating because it seems to me it doesn't matter where you are on the planet, it's the human element that makes or breaks careers and leadership journeys every day. And as an entrepreneur, written 3 books and grown the team and condensed the team and experienced highs and lows. But then before that, what got me there was 2 stints in corporate, in a telecom world where I was doing leadership and executive development in-house on a global scale for leaders. But prior to that, I was on the other side of the house. I was working in banking in the UK, 15 years of lending money to companies at all stages of their life cycle. So I got used to enmeshing myself in formulas and ratios and just looking at the trends and the internal and external dynamics that impact company success. And I pivoted from numbers and the cash flow forecast into the human side because I realized that the how business gets done is what makes and breaks ideas every single day. But often we mislabel those the soft skills. But if you don't focus on the soft skills, you don't get to the hard, tangible dollar results. So that's my career leadership arc, starting in banking, initially processing checks, then working as a cashier and as a teller, then working as a loans officer, and finally being a bank manager and a pillar of the community before pivoting and joining the bank's learning and development team, which took me off on this branch.
Yeah. It's so good. I mean, I love that starting with the numbers and bridging it to the people, and that's what it's all about. I love that kind of journey. It always strikes me that when people look back on the journey, it kind of all makes sense. But what did it feel like along the way? How did you make
Oh
those
my God.
decisions and those choices?
Oh, so I am an opportunist. There you go. So, having spent years looking at cash flow forecasts and business plans and everything, and they are important. Let's be clear, they are important, but they also have a place. Because in my book, You, Me, We, I talk about wishes, ponies, and unicorns. And it's a throwaway comment I gave to Eric Spencer when he joined me, my business partner, to describe a spreadsheet he was showing me for a business plan that he had. And he'd got fine lines, about marketing and legal fees and da 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 da, and 6 months to get to his first sale. And I looked at it and I said, well, it's all wishes, ponies, and unicorns. And he goes, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, the numbers look great. The assumptions look great. The amount you're investing here looks great, but it means nothing until the first check is in the bank or until the customer says yes. And so, how did I make my decisions? Often with a lot of overthinking, but often with a lot of no thinking, just, oh, that sounds fun, and going and doing it. And I think that's why, as I look back in my career, I can say I'm probably on my 6th career because it's no longer finance. It's no longer leadership development. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a book publisher. I'm a keynote speaker. I do it because it's fun and it energizes me. And I seize the moment and then work out how to do it.
Yeah. It brings me back, we were talking about the first time we met at a Starbucks, and it brings me back to advice that I actually bring up to people a lot that you gave me is do not think you have to have it all figured out before you move forward. Allow it to be messy. And you were talking
Hmm.
about as a business, you don't have to like write the proposal before you have all of it figured out of how you're going to do it and get the work. But how do you apply that in working with so many leaders that you just mentioned across the world? How does that
Hmm.
equate that same thought process to those leaders and how they should lead?
Well, I think I hear myself say it in every time I'm meeting a potential new client, whether that's an executive coaching client, a leader that needs help in being successful now, or a team. So I'm working with an executive team here in Colorado right now. And while I bring 30 years, heaven help me, my career is now actually more than 30 years old. So I bring a lot of experience. I can, with fairly good confidence, predict what might be needed in an executive retreat or a leadership academy. But I also am humble enough to know that I don't know the unique context in which you, the leader, or you, your organization, is operating. And
Mm-hmm.
so curiosity to me is the biggest thing that we can bring, whether it's to an in-house career or in running your own business and serving others, is to listen first, to
Mm-hmm.
check my experience and assumptions around what might be needed and overlay those with what I understand, having asked questions, reviewed documents, spoken to key stakeholders, what is actually required.
Mm-hmm. I love that so much because we have so many ways that what we talk about intersect and
Mm-hmm.
moving past no from a negotiation perspective is all about just being curious, not hearing no as a stopping point, but just going, okay, that's interesting. So, what does that mean? Help me understand
Mm-hmm.
more context. And I think that's true for so many things in leadership is we act like we need to move to the next thing, but we need to kind of dwell in that moment, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I would agree. And when we hear no, or when we hear even questions of Morag, why would you do that? Help me understand. Often, and I know I've done this, is that you can react and take it personally, that this is a slight on me, that either I've not done it right or you're questioning my smarts or my credibility. Whereas when you channel it through the lens of curiosity, it's about learning. And I
Mm-hmm.
have learned that, for example, the sales cycle in our businesses, and you've probably seen it the same, Susie, it can be an hour, it can be
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6 years later. But I
Mm-hmm.
trust the universe in that if I'm putting good out there, the ripple effects, if I'm helping you and your startup, I remember those conversations, then at some point the universe is going to reward me. And the
Mm-hmm.
same has seen if we do our best work in the moment, then what we've seen is graduates of those programs will invariably call us weeks, months, years later saying, hey, I'm in a new role, I'm in a new team. What you said then resonated. Can you help me now in this new context? And then the circle continues. Tell me about the new context. What's the same? What's different? How have you changed? What's different? Now, here's our best thinking, our best experience to help you to accelerate your success today.
Yeah. I think the other thing I like to just believe is that we make impact for people. We create impact for people. You and I do in what we do, whether we're speaking or we're working with teams or we're doing one on one coaching. But as leaders in organizations, we create impact too. And sometimes that goes invisible. And there, you might get little sparks of it later, like, gosh, you said this to me and it really impacted me, and those things like keep me going. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what we miss sometimes as leaders, especially if they're in the day to day with the same team and like it becomes this routine. If you can always
Yes.
come from that aspect of you're impacting somebody, how do
Well,
you
you've
get
got to
people to continue to
remember.
be inspired?
Yeah, it's interesting because our own lives are humdrum. I mean, you asked me about how I got to where I am today, and there's always that little voice that says, "Well, nobody's going to want to listen to that because I saw that movie and it was boring." But from the outside in, either you're only
Yeah.
seeing the pinnacle, the 16 years of Sky Team success, and it looks like an overnight success, and you don't get to see necessarily the highs and lows behind the scenes. And having fun at work is just one of the things that I think makes a difference for us at Sky Team, is not being so buttoned up and serious, and
Mhm.
holding ourselves and each other checks and balances, that when we get stuck on that hamster wheel of got to do more, is actually putting the brake on for ourselves and each other, so that we can take a moment to reflect and either bask in the, wow, that was an amazing week, and or take a breath to recharge our batteries ready for the next sprint.
Mhm. Yeah. I want to also continue to talk about the questions. You and I both know, and we both tell people questions are the secret. And just this week, I was working with a senior leader, and I was telling him I worked with a CEO that was very accomplished. She has a very successful business that she owns, privately held. And I was meeting with her. And I said, "What can I do to serve you more?" And she goes, "I just love that you ask me questions. Nobody else asks me questions." And I'm like, what a missed opportunity for these leaders. If they're reporting to the CEO or they're reporting to a VP,
Mm-hmm.
why do you always assume it should go one way? Ask
Mm-hmm.
questions back. So tell me what you think about questions. Let's dig into that a little more. There's a lot of power there.
Oh, there is definitely power, because questions help to get to misunderstandings,
Hmm.
or avoid misunderstandings. They help us get to a better shared understanding. And in fact, I wrote down a question today that came from Michael Bungay Stanier, and he has a great little, oh, he's got several books, but one of them is called The Advice Trap. And it gets to this point of curiosity, that as leaders who are successful in our own way, it can be too easy for us when somebody says, well, Susie, how do I? Is we just tell, instead of, and that's the advice trap. We give out advice too soon, according to Michael Bungay Stanier. And one of the questions that I wrote down today was, and I'm looking down at my notebook now, is, what are we pretending isn't true?
Wow.
And it's getting at the elephants in the room question from a slightly different angle. And I plan to use it with the new executive team as part of that offsite for that Colorado team I mentioned, because I know part of the conversation will be around, what do we need to achieve? What do we need to solve for? And they're going to come away thinking, yay, we're all aligned and that was great. But the what are we pretending isn't true could be even as how difficult this is actually going to be to implement, to move from enthusiastic
Mhm.
offsite rah rah to real tangible holding each other accountable. And I
Mhm.
don't know what the answers are going to be, but I plan to ask it, and I am plan to sit in the awkward silence that may follow.
Mhm.
Because as leaders, I think that's the other thing that we can all learn to get better at. And as an extrovert, I've had to learn to use, is to enjoy silence. Silence isn't necessarily a space to be filled. Silence is an opportunity for people to gather their thoughts, consider their answer to what are we pretending isn't true, decide whether or not they're going to share it, decide they need to share it, and then actually share it. And if I keep filling the silence, we never get to the magic, the juicy stuff of what might get in the way. So questions, I'm always adding to the library, but
Mhm.
asking them and then giving space for people to ponder them and then answer them,
Mhm.
that can be a huge leadership advantage.
Mhm. I love that. And I will just add that awkward silence. You truly don't know how long it is until you can watch somebody else do it, because you do tend to want to break it. It is a practice that is something that you can always get better at. And I love
Mm-hmm.
that it also allows the other person to go to a place that maybe they don't even know was expected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's the what are we pretending isn't true and what else? So there's
Mhm.
no judgment, but it goes deeper. And you see it every day. I'll give you another example of how questions get misused. It's when we see each other and we go, how you doing? And the expected answer in 99% of the case is fine. Because really, how are you doing is I see you. And heaven forbid that you should say, well, I'm glad you asked. The cat just threw up this morning, this happened, blah, blah, blah. Because it is literally meant to be, I see you. So when we choose choose to ask a question, we need to be ready. And this is one of the ally mindset principles we talk about in our new book, You, Me, We, is to be willing to do two things: courage and vulnerability, which is to sit in that awkward silence, but also to make space for the candor and debate, the two-way dialogue, the truth speaking that helps us to deepen our trust and the quality of our working relationship, but also increase the level of understanding that allows us to go and solve some of the hairy projects and problems that we're invariably going to face again in a corporate world.
Hmm. So you brought up vulnerability, and I
Mm-hmm.
want you to, like, I think we talk about that a lot, but can you, what's your definition of it, and have you seen leaders really, have you, can you share us a story or something of what what does vulnerability look like in the wild?
Oh, well, I can talk to it from a personal experience. Well, here's what I know Brene Brown says. And Brene Brown is the goddess, as far as
Yep,
I'm concerned,
me
of
too.
courage and vulnerability, because she
Mhm.
points out from her research that you can't have one without the other. And she uses the military as an example because it takes courage to walk into a battlefield, but
Mhm.
vulnerability because it could ultimately cost you your life.
Mhm.
So you don't get one without the other. And so vulnerability is often mislabeled as a weakness.
Mhm.
But when you realize actually vulnerability is courage in action, it's powerful. It's for your, like you asked me earlier, how did I make my decisions? Well, sometimes they're easy, like I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And others, I am quaking on the inside of, am I about to make a mistake? Am I about to lose money? Am I about to upset somebody? But doing it anyway because somewhere I believe it's the right thing to do. So courage and vulnerability, I think, is something that is a conversation that's now happening as leaders. And it's one that is vital because without it, we don't take informed risk. We don't innovate. We don't move halfway around the world from the UK to live in Colorado. We stay within our boxes.
Mhm.
And I know from my own career that I spent the first half of it easily and up until the last 6 or 7 years living up to what I believed others expected of me. And that included the stiff upper lip, nothing to see here, I've got my stuff in order, how can I serve you? And being very polished, high standards,
Yeah.
high quality work. But it took several other leaders to say, you know so much about me, the warts and all, and I know so little about what's really happening for you. And it's only in the last 6, 7, 8 years that I think I'm not there yet, but starting to open up the Morag version of vulnerability. And in my case, and there's a couple of LinkedIn posts that talk to this, tears in front of really important colleagues to me. Now, on the one hand, they were really important enough that somewhere in my psyche said, this is going to be okay, you can do this. But also terrified that, oh my God, what have I done? And I'm not saying that vulnerability is that we all need to burst into tears at work, but me getting in touch and being able to show the warts and all version of Morag has actually helped me to be an even better executive coach and an even better leadership and keynote facilitator, because
Hmm.
I am better able to empathize with others and others are better able to understand and connect with me.
I think you're saying, and I think I hear you saying too, it's a journey to figure out what vulnerability, it, you can never attain it completely.
You
You're
can't
always
contain it
discovering it.
on your own. It's a discovery personally, because you have to choose what you want to share. And it's not just about sharing, because here's the thing, without courage and vulnerability, if I'm sitting here in my home office thinking, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I've got to work this out on my own, all that does is create politics, silos, and turf wars.
Mhm.
Courage and vulnerability is, I don't know what to do, I'm not going to meet this deadline, I've made a mistake, it can be anything. But courage and vulnerability is picking up the phone and saying, Susie, I need your help.
Mhm.
And think about it. If we could at work know that we could come and say to each other, I've made a mistake or I need help, without fear of it being seen as a weakness, but
Mhm.
instead of as a learning opportunity, or how do we pitch in? How do we move forward together? How empowering would that be? How many missed goals? How many, I don't know, disappointing feedback moments have been created because we did not have the courage and vulnerability to ask for help, to offer help, and more importantly, to take the help when it was available?
Mhm.
And that's what I want to get to, where we don't have to pretend, where we can bring our full selves to work. And I have that. I'm lucky. I have Eric and Ruby on my team. We are true allies, best friends at work. We wrote You, Me, We together. But we have that because when I'm at the 20% gas tank, I can say to Eric and Ruby, you know what? I'm exhausted. I can't, or this is what's happening. And they'll pick up the ball and run with it because they know that at some point in the future, they're going to have the 20% gas tank, and it will be my turn to catch up and fill in for them. That's what a true team of allies looks like. That's what, and the whole premise of the book is having a best friend at work, why we all need a friend at work and how to show up as one. And it starts with courage and vulnerability as one of the 5 practices. There you
Mhm.
go, a long answer, a bit of personal answer and a bit of business answer. So what's
Mhm.
going through your mind, Susie?
Yeah, it just I love that, and I think the responsibility to the other side of that, when you notice that somebody is being vulnerable, understand and respect the fact that that's not easy to do, and
Yes.
never use it against them, because I automatically think back
Yeah.
to my days of being careful about corporate politics and the things around that, and how sometimes it could be the easy road to go, well, did you know that Morag didn't feel like she did very
Yes.
I didn't think she did very good at that anyway. And like taking it, just really honoring that relationship. I think that that's be mindful of when people feel vulnerable so that you can help them understand and trust that you are an advisor that will
Yes.
not turn on them, if you will.
So here's the thing. I mean, there's so many thoughts went through my mind as I listened to it because it was so powerful what you said there. Because it's career limiting for a leader if your direct reports or your colleagues are not coming to you with the bad news.
Yeah.
But of course, it can be career limiting for your direct reports or your colleagues to bring you the bad news because you might shoot the messenger. So you lose when you don't have that psychological safety, the culture and team of trust.
Hmm.
But also, I was trying to think, there was something else it sparked for me too, in terms of that whole, it's not that we have to share everything, but making an informed choice to share, whether it's the life story, the fact that I'm a mother of 3 6-foot boys, I'm a ballroom dancer when there isn't a pandemic going on. I actually don't like heights. I'm okay in aeroplanes, but put me in old buildings, cathedrals that have stood for 1,000 years, and I'm holding onto the wall, and I am literally petrified. Hate it, hate it, hate it. Um, just bringing some of that human to work allows us to make connections in a way that we wouldn't otherwise do. But you can choose how much you want to share. But if you choose not to share, or if you choose not to speak up of, well, that's a stupid idea, or that'll never work, or if you do that, it's going to cause problems there. If we hold that to ourselves, you don't get to BMW, bitch, moan, and whine later on of, well, you won't believe what Susie's going to do. And nor do you get to come back and say, gotcha, I could have told you that. The key is say it in a way that's going to build others up. And you kind of touched on it with the gossip. Gossip is always going to exist. We thrive on the scuttlebutt. But if it's scuttlebutt on the basis of knocking others down, oh my God, did you see what Susie did? That's toxic. You've got to nip that in the bud,
Yeah.
whether you're a leader or a colleague or whatever. Just don't do it. But if it's scuttlebutt on, oh my God, did you see what Susie did? It was amazing. Then do it.
Hmm.
Keep doing it. And preferably do it to the other person as well, so that they get that recognition and that boost in the moment. So think about what we're saying, and is it meant to build others up, or are we trying to knock others down? And what does that say about us? because I'd rather be part of a team and an organization that was the former, the building us up, let's learn and grow, versus the other that becomes dog eat dog.
Yeah. I like what you said too about kind of breaking that cycle in that. I think it can become a habit, can also be something that it bonds people. I remember really early in my career, um, me and this other woman would kind of trash our peer, like not like just kind of like those, it's just stupid crap that we would say. And one day she said to me, we need to break this cycle. This isn't
Yep.
healthy. This isn't nice. And I was
Mm-hmm.
so respectful of her because she was saying to me, I love you, but let's not
Done.
bond on this.
Yes.
And I thought that took so much courage for her to say that because we were in a
Mm-hmm.
habit of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Again,
And
you'd gone
so,
on to autopilot. Is the
yeah,
unconscious incompetence here that this is how we
yes,
always do it, but we're not recognizing the ripple effects and how it consciously and subconsciously impacts our psyche for when we show up with that colleague that we've been talking about.
yeah,
It impacts our behavior. It infects others. It really is, to your point, it's unhealthy.
yeah, totally. One question I always ask people, and I would love for you to do it from your perspective, and maybe some executive that you work with that you know very well. When you think about leveraging what you have as a leader, like I like to think leverage means something positive. It's additive to what you're doing. How does that land for you? Like how do you think about leverage and leadership?
So for me, so if I think about the Morag answer, so in You, Me, we talk about the ally mindset, how to be a best friend at work, not just have them. And there are 5 practices that make for an ally mindset from our research. The foundational one is abundance and generosity. And that to me is my operating system for the world. It's how I leverage me. Because
Yeah.
I literally say to people, you can call me now or 10 years from now. If you need help, I'm here for you. You want a book recommendation? You want to sit down for 15 minutes and I'm here. You want a copy of a template for a document? Call me. I'm your woman. And no nickeling and diming, just give it out to the universe because what goes around comes around. So that is how I leverage me. Now, I am coaching a leader right now who is very good at the 5th element, which is action and accountability. But it's also become an overplayed strength. So her way of delivering results is by being very clear about expectations for others and holding people's feet to the fire in order to deliver them. So delivering the business results hands down. But what she hasn't done so well is invest in the second element of an ally mindset, connection and compassion, getting to know the people on her team as human beings beyond just the job title and what can you do on this particular project. And it's interesting because it hasn't taken very long for her to start turning things around and seeing the engagement level and therefore the discretionary effort of the team go up by just slowing down and introducing something as simple as ripples and joys. And what are ripples and joys? Well, every staff meeting that she does now starts with a few minutes of essentially chit chat where we share ripple, a project we've moved forward, a milestone we've reached, and a joy, anything from life that has made us smile or happy. So it could be the leader I was just talking to before our call, who's got both a dance recital and a soccer match for their kids that they're going to go and see this weekend, sharing those whole life experiences that again allow us to connect in a different way. So leverage comes 2 ways. It comes from within and understanding what do we naturally gravitate to, but also recognizing where that might become an overplayed strength and where we may need to redefine so that others feel like they are part of the team versus just a means to an end.
Wow, that was oh, there's so much there about understanding
Okay.
what you bring and the leverage around it. Like I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this could be its own
Thing.
segment around." Yeah, all those things that you
Okay.
talk about in your book and how you turn them up and down depending on
Mm-hmm.
who you are and who those people are around you.
And what they
Wow.
need. Yeah.
Yes, I love that so much. Oh, so fun. Time just flies when we're talking, Morag. It just like that. It's in a moment. Tell people, how do they get to know you? How do they follow you? How do they get your book? Tell us a little bit about that.
All right. So, three ways. And this always makes Eric laugh on my team because invariably it ends up being four, but three ways. So, first of all, definitely get your hands on the new book, You, Me, We: Why We All Need a Friend at Work and How to Show Up as One. You can see it on the shelf behind me. And that will give you access to our Ally Mindset profile and get you on that journey of being the go to colleague. Doesn't matter where you are in your career, better to have a reputation as the go to person than the go from person. So that would be number one. Number two would be connect with me on LinkedIn. So you were listening to this podcast conversation with Susie, connect with me, and then you can follow my newsletter and see the posts that I'm sharing there around how we can be better leaders and colleagues at work and ultimately better together. And then third and finally, it is at our corporate website. So you can see it by my name here, skyeteam.com, SKYE team.com. And you can learn about our keynotes, our leadership programs, our team building programs, but also individual executive coaching. Whatever lights your fire, we're here to help you be better together.
Oh, so good, Morag. It made me think about, we first met because of that abundance mindset that you've helped me
Mm-hmm.
understand and embrace, because you've always been that way. You definitely practice what you preach. So thank you so much. I will also put all of those resources in the show notes so people can find you, can get the book, can follow you, and also benefit from your wisdom. So thank you so much for joining us today on Leaders with Leverage. It was so nice, and so many moments, brilliant moments from you as always. Thank you, Morag.
Thanks, Susie. Here's to ongoing success and a whole heck of fun for all of us.
Cheers.